Will AI-generated code make you a worse programmer? Today, we're going to figure that out. We're going to check out what Rudus had to say about that. I will link this article in the description so you can check it out afterwards, and feel free to reach out to the author. But let's jump into it. Using AI-generated code will make you a bad programmer. It's probably fine, unless you care about self-improvement or taking pride in your work. Starting off strong. Okay. To be clear, when I write using AI-generated code, in this opinion, I'm referring to letting an AI write code for you. I'm not addressing the use of AI as a learning tool to gain better insight into programming languages and libraries in order to improve the code that you write yourself. I have opinions on that too. But if you ever use these tools by writing descriptive method names or comments indicating vague functionality, then allowing an AI to fill in the code, or if you're relying on an AI to learn and understand your own code base, you don't have to, then I'm writing this at you. Let's be honest. Of course, you're writing it at us. All right, let's. So far, I agree. I really want to hear his perspective on this. And I'm kind of curious if he's going to go into learning with AI rather than essentially creating a dependency on it and allowing it to think for you. So we'll see, though. Reasons to not use AI-generated code. You rob yourself of learning opportunities. In the early days of the internet, the pejorative script kiddie was coined for people who hack computer systems without understanding what they're doing or how they're accomplishing it. It's someone who downloads a tool or script that promises to crack a password, access someone else's computer to face a website, or achieve some other nefarious purpose, assuming the scripts work as advertised. The kiddies who run them fancy themselves real hackers. You may think it's a stretch comparing developers who use AI-generated code to script kiddies using pre-written hacking tools. I don't know if a lot of you are old enough to know the term script kiddie. Is that still a thing? I think that's a really interesting comparison. Serial script kiddies want to be big boy hackers, but they'll never accomplish that by running scripts. The real big boy hackers are the ones writing those scripts, the ones exploring, probing, and truly understanding the vulnerabilities being exploited. Serial AI coders may want to be big boy developers, but by letting predictive text engines write code for them, they're hurting the chances of that ever happening. At least for now, the real big boy developers are the ones writing code that those predictive text engines are training on. Man, do I love how condescending this is. I want to keep reading. It seems self-evident that you can't improve at something without actually doing that thing. You won't improve at chess by not playing games. You won't become a better hockey player by sitting on the bench. You can't learn to play the piano by listening to your mom's Yanny albums. At some point, you got to play yourself. Obviously, your skills as a developer will never progress if you don't write code. And so the reason why I love how condescending this is because there is a strong messaging among many developers who are letting their skills atrophy, among many junior developers who are essentially just parroting this perspective that AI is making you a better developer, but they don't really know the finer details of how that ends up being. They don't know which developers are actually becoming stronger software engineers by using AI and which ones are letting their skills atrophy and becoming worse. And so you get a lot of people parroting that everyone should be using AI. Every developer should be using AI, but they don't really have a specific plan in place on how to do that effectively. And I like how condescending this is so far because a lot of people feel strongly that AI just automatically makes you a better developer, like really strongly. And we're talking about like sometimes developers with some significant experience that are preaching this to junior developers. So far, love the vibe. Obviously, I agree with it so far, but we'll see. Skills you already have may atrophy. But what if you're already comfortable with your skill as a programmer? What if you just want AI to do the boring stuff? Scaffold a new project, write a factorial or merge sort function. Why do people love AIs to write factorial, merge, sort functions so much? Generate boilerplate, the mundane tasks. Maybe you think that's fine. After all, senior developers have been delegating tedium to juniors long before LLMs were a twinkle in Sam Altman's eye. What's the difference? Firstly, junior programmers need more direction than an AI tool and may also come to you for answers or advice. Helping them gives you the opportunity to reinforce your own skills, as well as develop new ones, mentoring, communication, how to grin and act pleasant despite your ever-mounting irritation and impatience. Secondly, it's a basic fact in software development and life in general that if you don't do something for long enough, you're going to forget how to do it. And this is honestly like, this pretty much sums up a big reason why I push so hard against creating too much of a dependency on AI, even for boilerplate. And I'm glad he mentioned about the boilerplate because I'm going to keep reading. I'm not going to go into it, but like this essentially sums it up. Like it's a use it or lose it situation. Software engineering has always been that way. And you'll find that the more you use it, the longer you retain it and the easier it is to recall that thing. And so frequency matters, but also, frequency matters of reusing something, even if it feels tedious and minor and it's a small building block of something bigger that you're creating. This can atrophy. And you can't always depend on the tools. You can't always depend on AI generating code for you. You need to be careful about the dependencies that you create and the critical thinking that it prevents you from having. But this right here sums up a big reason why I push against, especially junior developers, having AI write any of their code, even boilerplate. If you've been in the industry a while, think back to the first programming language you learned. For me, that was Pascal. I don't think I could write a single line in Pascal today that would be syntactically valid, let alone accomplish anything meaningful. Another exercise, try programming for a day without syntax highlighting or auto-completion, and experience how pathetic you feel without them. If you're like me, you'll discover that those assistants have sapped much of your knowledge by eliminating the need to memorize even embarrassingly simple tasks. Imagine how pathetic you'd become if AI removed your need to write code entirely. If you stop writing your own code, even the boring bits, you're going to get rusty. You'll forget things. Coding the interesting bits will become harder for you because you'll lose the foundation that those more advanced skills are built on. Holy shit, is this author base? Let's keep going. Imagine an exercise equipment manufacturer releasing a new artificial strength product tomorrow, promising that you can level up your lifting and crush your next workout with their amazing new exercise assistant robot that lifts the weights for you. Or a pill. If you start relying on that product, what do you think would happen to your max bench over time? What will coding assistants do to your ability to write and reason about code over time? And I think a lot of people tend to get locked into, well, I don't have to remember syntax, but a lot of the generated code will also strip your ability to reason about your code before it's even written, and be able to put together that code and be able to organize it well before it's even written. You can't just expect to read code and be able to reason through a lot of your code. You can't just read it. Writing helps reinforce. It helps your mind think about it in a different way. This is a big one. You may become dependent on your own eventual replacement. Many of the AI, I feel like I want to read more of these articles. Many of the AI coding assistants on the market at the time I'm writing this offer their products for free to students. You might think that's sweet of them. Bless their kind hearts for taking it easy on those poor, financially burdened kids. Wrong. If there's any time in a software developer's life when they should absolutely not be taking shortcuts, it's when they're first learning the ropes. Yep. And this is a problem because a lot of people were convinced that everyone should become a developer and that was their escape from their financial burden. And the problem is, like, the desire to change your life for the better is awesome. But convincing junior developers and brand new developers that software engineering was a get quick rich scheme and that they didn't need a degree and they get a 100K job, that was cruel. A lot of content creators did that. A lot of coding boot camps did that. It was a very, very cruel thing that our industry has done to new developers, and now they are facing the consequences. This is straight up predatory behavior. Like religious cults indoctrinating straight out of the womb to ensure a constant influx of new members. The AI companies know that getting developers hooked before they've cracked open their first text editor guarantees a lifetime of reoccurring subscription revenue. Yup. I'm sure they see the writing on the wall when it comes to entrenched graybeards like me who write absurdly long rants and draw silly comics about how much we loathe AI and the companies that shill it. So instead, they look to future generations of developers like envisioning an army of AI-dependent code kiddies who couldn't echo Hello World without a lengthy chat session in which they instruct the bot to do it for them. That's not far from the truth either. Oh, that is so depressing. Psst. Kids looking to be coders, try one of these first on me. Dude, this is like the AI product world in a nutshell, especially in the educational space. Dude, it's so predatory. It's so messed up. I kind of feel bad for new developers having to navigate this crap. Earlier in this article, I intimated, is that the right, am I reading that correctly? I intimated that many of us are already dependent on our fancy development environments, syntax highlighting, auto-completion, code analysis, automatic refactoring, and it does a lot. And that's very attractive to lean on a lot of help. You might be wondering how AI differs from those. The answer is pretty easy. The former are tools with the ultimate goal of helping you to be more efficient and write better code. The latter is a tool with the ultimate goal of completely replacing you. I think part of the fight, part of the argument of the author here is that they're just a version of AI potentially, like the harm it can do to humanity or the software engineering industry in general. And I think that's being mixed in more practical reasons why you might not want to, because even some of these former tools like syntax highlighting, auto-completion, code analysis, automatic refactoring, like I would argue, depending on how much lifting these things do for you, especially with code analysis and refactoring, like this is going to stunt your growth and potentially kind of reverse it a bit. And so it's not even that whether it's coming from AI, which I think this person just has a huge aversion to AI in general, which is fine, but I think these are problems, and these have been problems for a long time. And I think good developers have been well aware of that, especially with these last two. And I think you got to be careful about that. Now, product deadlines really create, and I've heard this from so many professional software engineers, but product deadlines are like the death of the growth of your software engineering career, because you just create all of this dependency. And man, so many people even just relying on TypeScript. Do you know how many companies still use JavaScript without TypeScript and try to import some kind of hacky type library? I mean, TypeScript is great, but even dependency that can come from TypeScript environments it's not guaranteed. Like you're not guaranteed that tool in the future, and you should be aware of that. I want to continue reading, but I'll save my thoughts till the end. I want to continue reading. AI tools aren't being aggressively marketed and eagerly received by our corporate overlords, which is very true, and that is promising because they believe it will transform their employees into high earning senior developers. No, they're drooling in anticipation because they see a future in which high earning senior developers have all been replaced by cheaper entry-level AI-fueled kiddie codes. Wait. Okay, so I don't think there's a wide adoption among companies in general. I should have kept reading that because that wasn't what this person was saying. But I don't think there's a wide adoption in general with AI being anywhere significant in any of the teams or software engineers and their teams that I'm aware of. Like didn't Google say like 25% of the code was written by AI, but it was more of like an autocomplete thing. Which felt very misleading. I didn't really look heavily into that, so I could be mistaken. But I think stories that get pulled up because they get a lot of pushback are stories about AI replacing developers, and they can come from most of the time outside of the software engineering field. Product's a big one that'll push that story. I don't feel like there's a wide adoption. They're drooling in anticipation because they see a future in which their high-earning senior-level developers have all been replaced by cheaper entry-level. I don't think that's going to be a thing. I can see the other way around, where a lot of junior developers are being replaced and senior engineers are being recruited that are going to work at a faster pace, mid to senior level engineers, and the bar is going to rise. At least that is what is slightly happening now. The market, like the entry level market, is barely affected by AI. It's affected by a lot of other variables, not AI, not even close. So I don't think it's affecting us now, but I could see that potentially being the future. Better yet, replaced by AI entirely once enough of us have shelled out subscription fees for the privilege of training those AIs to the point where we're no longer needed at all. I think some people, some software engineers, just fear for their jobs in their industry. And I'm going to be honest, like them just refusing to use AI. So here's what's going to happen. AI is going to, not at a substantial rate right now, but AI is eventually going to increase mid and senior developer speed by quite a bit, without being as much of a crutch as if like a junior engineer were to use it. So they're not going to atrophy as nearly as much. And I feel like we're going to, as an industry, there's going to be a lot of major pushback among senior developers, because I think one thing we need to be concerned about is not that AI is going to replace us, but that AI is going to create a perspective of product managers that we can move at a much faster pace than we can sustain. And the expectation, and we got to be careful of this, is that like every developer is going to lean heavily on AI to be able to push the product out extremely quickly. And we're going to get a lot of shitty and low quality code. And I see that already, where developers are encouraged to use AI, or they used AI kind of in their initial few months, and they were just cruising at a certain speed, and now that's their expectation. And if they're moving more slowly now, they're caught with their pants down, because either they're slacking off, or they got to admit that they've been leaning on AI as a dependency to be able to do their job. And then how valuable are they really? Why not just have a senior developer kind of speed up their workflow and just replace you? And that people are getting caught in these weird positions, and eventually you will get caught. And I think it's completely fair for software engineers to push back against that. And it just creates a bad environment for everyone. It creates a lot of shitty, low quality code that's insecure. That's like, AI is nowhere close to where any company should trust it to push out production code. Especially that's not heavily filtered by the developer. But even if your aversion is to just not include AI in your workflow to create unrealistic expectations, that is a perfectly good reason to shut that down. And honestly, a lot of software engineers should seriously consider shutting that down. Like I've listed other reasons why, but AI has the potential, it's not close yet, but AI has the potential to fuck over our industry, and not for the better of anyone. And I think a lot of product and owners are going to really regret this. Obviously, software engineers are going to have an aversion to this, but this isn't a win for anyone. This is just going to push out shitty products quickly, and you're going to build a bad reputation. You're going to lose trust with your customers. Like it's just a shitty outcome overall. So honestly, like if you're a software engineer listening to this, I highly recommend you push back, especially when you start realizing that your employer is gaining unrealistic expectations of your productivity and your speed, because I'm seeing it's not sustainable. Be very careful about that is what I'm saying. Push back. Brief aside, do you even own AI-generated code? I'm no lawyer, nor do I play one on TV, but I do subscribe to Hello Future Me on Nebula and have the distinct impression that there is, to put it mildly, some legal ambiguity around ownership when it comes to AI-generated works Right now, the conversation is primarily around artistic tools. Works. Well, okay, hold on. Right now, the conversation is primarily around artistic works, but there's no reason to think it doesn't apply to code too. Also, if you're a weirdo like me, you enjoy programming as a form of artistic expression. Anyways, I wonder where the majority of data comes from to train AI models to be able to help with programming, but I'm very curious if like AI, and I doubt it, right? But AI is looking at open or public repositories that don't have the open source license, and you don't even know what license it's taken it from. What happens, and this is also a caution to not take code blocks entirely from ChatGPT and just copy and paste them into your production app, because you might realize down the road, and it gets leaked, that like a very large feature that you built was built off of stealing that from a public repo where you don't really have the licensing that company needs, and maybe that company is liable. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but that is a real concern. If you generate a function with AI that had LGBTPL license code and its training data, must that generated function now also fall under the LGPL? And that could really change things up with your repo. Maybe you don't care about the LGPL because that has no teeth, but what if the training data included a non-free repo from an obscenely wealthy and litigious corporation with their own private army of high-paid lawyers? What if companies start creating public repos for this purpose to then sue you? You don't think there are going to be bad actors that might try something like this? What if they could prove you used that AI when building your competing product that's gotten a little too successful for its own good? I honestly don't know the answers to these questions, but I also don't want to be the one footing the legal bills when it's time for the courts to answer them. Do you? Nope. Your code will not be respected. It's not correct to say that AI generated code will necessarily be bad. It won't necessarily be bad. That's true. While that may be true to varying degrees, given the tools available today, it's clear that this technology is here to stay and it's only going to improve. What I can say with some certainty is that if you use these tools, nobody outside of their AI code kiddies are likely to be impressed with you as a programmer. This is very true. There is an art to software development, and this is it right here. Like there's an art to software development. It's kind of a creative outlet, and like you're a software engineer, you're an engineer, and there's pride that comes with that, especially when you've spent a significant amount of time like building your skills up. And sometimes you just might have some older folks that are grumpy, they don't want to learn something new, but I think it's much deeper and widespread than that. It's a lot of software engineers, especially that have been in the industry for a long time, have not only built their skills up as a software engineer or as like being able to code, but they built their skills up as an engineer and being able to solve problems and critically think through all of this stuff. Like there are more skills than just being able to remember syntax and spit it out and remember what it does. And it is an art, and you spend decades getting better with it. And there is an amount of respect that comes from majority of developers when they meet other people that have put in that same amount of experience, because they know how much growth needed to be had to get to that level, to be able to solve the problems that they're solving. And it's kind of just like you could think about it in the context of like other areas of life, like even thinking about like bodybuilding. If someone finds out that you took a bunch of pills to be able to lose a bunch of weight, or you even like think about even testosterone, you do have to work quite a bit to be able to build the muscle up from test supplements, but still that's not a good example, because you still have to put a ton of work for test. But I do think like when it comes to bodybuilding, when it comes to physique in general, I think what's so respected about people that are incredibly fit is it kind of is how they look, but it's what their looks represent. It's the amount of work they had to put into refining their bodies and becoming that athletic and pushing themselves hard, becoming self-disciplined. And there's so many other variables that come from just lifting weights. Like you have to train yourself and change your mindset and change your beliefs about yourself. You are literally changing your identity as a person. And that's what comes from software engineering. You evolve as a person, you change. There's so much about you that changes. And now you are trying to just skip all of those steps to be able to show an outcome and be respected. You are not going to be respected at all. You don't deserve that respect in the software engineering industry. You just don't. And you're not going to get it. So I really would consider your reason for becoming a software engineer in general, because a lot of people started out with this being a craft. It's a skill that takes a long time to hone. It's a very creative outlet. And there's so much pride that comes with just being better at this and getting better, because it challenges so much more about you. Like if you could just snap your fingers and all of a sudden you look like you had been bodybuilding for 10 years and people realize that, they're not going to respect you. It's like people that inflate that crap in their muscles. I don't even know what it is, but it makes it look like you have like really big biceps and you obviously didn't work at it. Those people aren't respected at all. So I don't know if that analogy or that different example helps you to understand this, but like that's kind of how software engineering, that's how the industry is, and that's how people see each other in the industry, and for good reason. And I think you need to respect that. And when you try to skip over that, that's where you lose that respect. There is an art to software development. Constructing a coherent and tight code base, coming up with elegant solutions to hard problems, and earning the respect of your peers should be sources of pride and joy for every programmer. Would you rather celebrate your own accomplishments or those of the predictive text engine generating code for you? Perhaps I'm being silly, you're not. Maybe this way of experiencing the process of programming puts me in the minority, it isn't. Like an old fuddy-duddy complaining about how Batman doesn't dance anymore, but this is honestly the main reason why. Hold up. Complaining about how Batman doesn't dance anymore. Did Batman ever dance? But this is honestly the main reason why I personally will never integrate code generating AIs into my development environment, even if that eventually makes me unemployable. This is admirable and very depressing that this person thinks that they potentially will be unemployable due to this, and I don't think that's the case. I don't want to commission some art and pretend to be the artist. I want to be the artist. Like an art, skirt. So I'll say my comment. Wait, what is this comment? I just literally... Okay. Does this person create his own comics? They're actually pretty good if he draws these. I was even thinking to myself, like, here's the thing. I respect software engineering so much that I don't really have it generate code. I think I have one application where it generated maybe about 12 lines of code. And I copied and pasted that in and tried to understand it. And I regretted it ever since. And I never really did that. I think it's a good lookup tool. And this author mentioned like how you can use it to look up things, especially with new documentation, new libraries, frameworks, and you can use it for educational purposes, which is great. But, you know, like even when I look at this person's art, I would use AI to generate art. I think my aversion to it isn't that I think AI is going to destroy every part of humanity. I don't think I have that hard of a stance on it. I do think that I love what it is to be a software engineer so much that I don't want it to touch my craft. And I think it's more of an integrity thing. Maybe you call it a stubbornness, but there's pride that comes with this. And keep in mind, like I'm still I have 3 years of professional experience, and I've been coding on the side for a long time, but I still consider myself like kind of at a mid-level developer. And and I have so much to learn. I don't think I'm a great developer, but I'm excited going through the same journey, the same grind, the same grit that got me to where I am today to then continue pushing me forward. That fills me with pride, and that's something that a lot of new developers, I feel like, are skipping over, and they're never going to have that feeling. They haven't gone through years of aha moments and frustrations, and finally like building something so fleshed out and beautiful after 100 shitty projects where you just feel so accomplished. AI just takes all of that away from you. But would I use it to generate art for myself? I would. Would I do it for software engineering? No. I understand the laundry scheduling application you're writing for the hospitality industry or whatever your day job is, maybe on Fabian saying Lard's shortlist for a deep dive into the elegance of your code, but is that really such a bad thing to aspire to? Doesn't taking pride in your work make it more enjoyable? How can you respect your own code or expect anyone else to respect it if you didn't even write it? Oh, very true. Reasons to use AI-generated code. Okay. You are a masochist who prefers code reviews to coding. It was wrong earlier. This is the main reason why I personally never integrate, or I was wrong earlier. This is the main reason why I will personally never integrate AI into my development environment. I love to write code. I very much do not love to read, review, and generate feedback on other people's code. This is true. I'm the same way. Okay. I understand it's a good skill to develop and can be instrumental in helping to shape less experienced colleagues into more productive collaborators, but I still hate it. The more code you let AI generate for you, the more you're shifting your job from coder to code reviewer. I don't know, maybe that's your jam. Some people are into that kinky shit. I won't judge. I think that's fair, and I think AI is going to replace certain aspects of, because like when I had to stop writing code to then review someone else's code in files that I would probably never touch because they had ownership over that part of the application, I'm like, I got to do it. I did it because I had to do it. And yes, it was helpful, but towards them, well, at least I hope so. Maybe I screwed that up. But it wasn't a highlight of my day. I didn't like doing code reviews. I think a lot of people are like that too. And sometimes people take code reviews personally, and you got to know the personality and juggle that. I think AI is a really good code reviewer. At least it has the potential to replace something that a lot of people don't really like. And I think that's what we need to start striving for, is directing where AI is going to replace certain parts of our tasks. And I think code reviews is one of them. I think most people don't like them, but there's probably someone that's like, fuck you, that's all I like doing. I just want to do code reviews. Don't you dare let AI replace my code reviews. And that's fair too. You don't actually want to be a programmer. This is a really, really good reason. Holy shit. Before I even read this is such a good reason to use AI to generate code and to build stuff. Now, I don't know how big of an application you're building and how much you're scaling it. That might become really messy very quickly. But there are a lot of people just learning to code to build solutions. Like, just go with the low-code solutions, have AI generate it, whatever. Those are really good reasons. Build it, especially some of the smaller stuff, and be done with it. Like, this is what low-code solutions are used for. And I think they have a use case with product, and people just want to build stuff quickly and test it and just validate it with the market. This is a really good reason. If you're someone who has no actual interest in learning to code and instead see AI as more of a freelancer, telling it stuff like make a kart racer game and that sucks, make it better, then none of this really applies to you. Truly, I believe this is the future that giant corporations are frothing at the mouth for. A world where their walled garden ecosystems control not only the means of app distribution, but the means of app production as well. I think it's going... Man, with a low-code movement that was pushed so hard, this was the dream of many companies, and that didn't really flesh out into anything meaningful. I think AI destroys some of those barriers, and I think we will end up with AI being able to build and scale at least small to medium sized applications. But I think the larger the application, the more trouble you're going to run into using AI to generate it. But like, I like this idea for prototypes, right? There's a lot of stuff that companies wanted to build and try out. And I think being able to generate something very quickly to push out to your users and test it, like that's a fantastic use case while your developers start diving into more complex problems. Now, you're going to have a lot of developers that are probably frustrated with the code that they now have to manage if that product takes off, because you're probably going to swap to a developer if that product is meaningful and you're not just going to trash the code. But that's a good use case for it. Got an idea for a new app? Just tell the app store's AI what you want and it will excrete it straight onto your device, allowing big corpo to pocket a cool 100% of the subscription fees you and everyone else pony up for their new app. Far preferable to the 30% that was their cut in the before times, when those pesky app developer middlemen kept insisting they provided some kind of value to the process. Which brings me to my final reason you might want to use AI-generated code. Here we go. You believe we have entered a new post-work era and trust the corporations to shepherd us into it. Let me read that again. You believe we have entered a new post-work era and trust the corporations to shepherd us into it. Okay. In the unlikely event that you're already that deep into the Kool-Aid and you didn't bail on this article after the first couple of paragraphs, then I don't really have much else to say to you. I'd recommend you go read 1984, Fahrenheit 451, or Snow Crash. You'll probably enjoy their visions of the future and gain something to look forward to. And that's a good point. There are people that are so gone with this that there's no reaching them. They're sold on the future. And as much as AI can integrate into their lives, they want to give up those parts of their lives. And there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of black-pilled people like this that just want AI to take over everything just to see what happens. And, you know, if humanity is screwed, it becomes worse for it. They don't care. They're already depressed. There are a lot of like people that see technology as something that needs to happen. And in reality, it's an escape for them. And you got to be careful. This is just technology in general. Technology, the further we get into it, the more it kind of creates an escape from reality. And we lose, you got to realize like AI and technology and just even just programming for the little time that we've had things just keep advancing so much, so quickly. Like we aren't built to be this disconnected from reality and each other so quickly. Like humanity needs way more time and evolutions to be able to start changing how we even process how our lives play out as technology continues to replace a lot of our lives and our functionality and what we do and how we interact with our lives and other people. It's moving too quickly. And I think a lot of people are jarred by this. And I think you should be. I think technology is a really beautiful thing. And I love the internet. I love programming. I love what can be built and how things can be automated. But it is very much a double-edged sword that we will eventually cut ourselves with. And you should be aware of that. And if you aren't aware of that, I think you're delusional. You should at least be aware of that. There are always cons to progressing technology. But some people are just, again, I see this more with like depressed people, black-pilled people, people that are like don't really have much of a social life, that are detached from reality, people that just kind of like their dopamine is fucked and they are just sucked into technology. Their attention is screwed and they are just every part of their most of their interactions, most of their time investment throughout the day is just like stuck on their phone, on their computer, in video games. They are just further and further detached from reality, where, you know, the only place to go is deeper into technology because they fucked every other part of their life up, right? And their relationships. And sometimes it's not this extreme, but I do think technology tends to suck people in, and it tends to take things out of your life when it does. And as an individual, you have to be careful, and you have to be aware of that, and you have to catch yourself, and you have to fight against certain progressive movements in technology, or you might lose yourself, and humanity might lose itself. So I guess that's a little bit of a kind of a deeper analysis. And if you guys want, I can really dig into this, because I've thought about this quite a bit, but I feel like I'm not alone with this. And I think people that have been in technology for as long as they have, they know this. They know the dangers of it. To everyone else, thanks for reading. I'll undoubtedly have future opinionated rants and silly doodles about AI to share here. That's why I registered the domain, but for now there's no kind of schedule, so don't hold your breath. Instead, maybe get an AI to hold its breath for you. This is a really well-written article. I like this, and I really hope, I'm going to try to pronounce your name. Rudus, Mnīk. I butcher a lot of names, so I apologize if I butchered that, but this was a really good article. So I want to hear what you think about this. Does the article resonate with you? Does anything that hopefully I've added things to it, but has anything I've said resonated with you? Do you have any concerns about it? Do you just completely disagree with it? Do you think our perspectives are completely broken and we can't see this beautiful utopia, this future that you think AI is going to bring us and bring our industry as software engineers? Do you think that you are a better software engineer for this? I want to hear it. Let me know in the comments below, but I'll see you in the next one.